kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
The African dawn and sun is rising. Big fluffy grey clouds are rolling in, and this is Safari Live. Ready.
Standing by.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Good morning everybody, and welcome to a beautiful sunrise safari. It seems like we're going to have an incredible sunrise. If this cloud just goes over the top of the sun, we should be in for an absolute treat. Now, my name is Tristan. On camera today I've got Senzo, and we're out and about to try and see if we can't find all the magical creatures that come out in the dawn of the African bush. Now, hopefully there will be lots of cats around. I know Jamie's going to go look for leopards and hyenas, and I'm going to be looking for the big lions. Now, I did hear a lion call about 2 minutes ago, so it sounds like it is quite far south, but if anybody saw anything on the dam cam, or maybe heard it on the dam cam, then you can let us know on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Now, it is good to have Tayla back out as well. She's going to be walking this morning. Jamie's going to be on a vehicle, and as I said, she's going to be looking for hyenas. Now, as I say that, there's lots and lots of tracks for hyenas here, I think. Just want to make sure. Fortunately, they've all been trodden on by Impala, so none of them are very clear. But we do have our first animals for the morning, which is fantastic. So, you can see we've got the Wildebeest and Impalas in front of us, those that have just destroyed our hyena tracks that I wanted to show you. But there you can see them, and they're looking quite eerie because I've still got my lights on. It's quite dark with the clouds that are coming in, and their eyes are reflecting the light. There you go. And they almost look like they're possessed wildebeest that are coming out of the night. So it's something that would be quite scary should you want to get anywhere near here during the night and shone your torch. You would probably be very frightened of all of this. But alas, they are quite fine. They're not animals that we need to worry about. And this is a really nice herd. I actually have seen them a few times now, and they're spending their time around WildEarthTV access, and there's quite a number of them. You can see they're all still lying down, which would probably mean that there's very little sign of any predators here. So I don't think the lions have been around this area, although I think they should come here because there's more than enough food. Lots and lots of wildebeest. There you go. You can see the herd is stretched out all over. So yesterday when we saw them, I was trying to count how many there were, and I got to about 36, and there were still more coming. So it's quite a large group of wildebeest in this little area, and I'm sure they're the ones that we've been seeing on quarantine from time to time. It is not far from quarantine, and with the male lion that was there yesterday, or the night before, making quite a bit of noise, you'll find that it would have pushed these wildebeest off quarantine, and they're now using the next available open area, which is where we are now. And the reason why they like it here is because they're able to then see any signs of predators quite easily in this short grass and open clearing. You can see they're also all huddled together. I'm sure that's because it's a little bit cold at this time of the day. So when we all lie together like that, it means that they'll be ruminating and looking out for predators, but they can also stay nice and warm by being huddled together and staying nice and close and using each other's body heat to stay warm. They're almost looking at us as though to say, why are you waking us up? It's not time for our wake-up call yet. The sun hasn't risen. I'm sorry guys, unfortunately we have to get out. We want to try and find all that there is out here. But that's a nice little start to the morning. Right, so we're going to carry on, go and see what we can find, see if there's any sign of these naughty lions that have been evading us over the past few days. And while we do that, let's go across to Jamie so she can say good morning to all of you.
Good morning, and just have a look at the dramatic scene in front of you. I'm just going to let you take in the beauty of this for a moment. Isn't this absolutely stunning? I'll introduce myself in a second, but we took so long to get this shot properly placed that we're going to wait until the moon is perfectly in the middle of the branches, and then I shall introduce myself. complete with what looks like a martial eagle sitting in the dead tree as well. What a very beautiful start. What are you doing here? Beautiful massive eagle. And then the dramatic moon. Oh, Ferg, that moon's going to be right in the middle in just a few seconds. I can't see things from your perspective though. Oh, nearly there. Did we get our placement absolutely correct? Isn't that a beautiful start? The full moon slowly but surely setting. What a glorious, glorious day this promises to be. And the sound of a brown-crowned chagra. Okay, I suppose, Ferg, we'd better get the introductions done, now that we've done some scenery settings, before we get into trouble. A very good morning to all of you, and welcome on our sunrise safari, also known as the moonset safari. My name is Jamie, and this morning Fergus is on camera with me, and we just had to show you that spectacular scene. I went racing in the direction of where I know that there is a beautiful dead tree, so that we could make things even more dramatic. Now, don't forget to send through your questions on #SafariLive on Twitter. I'm partially listening to the conversation between Tax and Tristan. That's interesting. I did not realize that there were wild dogs seen on the damn camera this morning. That is an interesting update. I'm going to keep listening to this conversation. Don't you want to keep looking at the view for me? What an interesting update. Oh, that is very pretty. Okay, let me just get in on this conversation. This is very beautiful. Tristan? Tristan, sorry, what time was that those Madach were seen? Copy that, thank you. I have a feeling this is a juvenile. Not quite a juvenile, almost an adult. There's just something a little bit scruffy about its face that suggests... Oh! I'm sorry I called you scruffy. I'm sorry, but look at that. Look at the white patch around the face. And off it goes. Beautiful. Somewhere in between a juvenile with whitish greyish feather. Tayla apparently is suggesting it's an Ayers hawk eagle. I thought about a hawk eagle, but it is particularly large for an Ayers hawk eagle. The thought occurred to me, Tayla, but it was very, very large. The chances of us adding an Ayers hawk eagle... An Ayers hawk eagle is quite small. That was a very large bird that just flew off. Well, let's check the screenshots again and we can double check. You can send through your opinion on #SafariLive on Twitter. I also have seen a juvenile martial eagle about 3 times around this area. Between this and the Power Lines Road in the last few days. We've got 2 birds actually, or 2 different species of bird. Let me show you the second one, now that we've had a look at the moon. And then I want to start going to look for these wild dogs, because apparently wild dogs were seen on the damn camera. There we go. And welcome to Skip, who is a 12-year-old viewer from Texas. Skip, you want to know if there are any nocturnal birds that hunt at night. I can tell you that these birds do not. They do not hunt at night. In fact, they settle down on dead trees at night, and that is where they sleep. However, Skip, yes, there are birds that hunt at night. Something like a Verreaux's eagle owl, or perhaps a... Oh, goodness, sorry, lots of chatting happening. There's the Verreaux's eagle owls, lots of different species of owl. Some of the smaller ones, pearl-spotted, barred, and all sorts of things in between. Here's the massive white-backed vultures that have settled in this dead tree. I wonder where they came from and why they're hanging around here. Skip, there's also smaller birds of prey, like a fiery-necked nightjar. They hunt insects, generally speaking, not anything larger than that, but that still counts as hunting, I guess. But these scavengers, the white-backed vultures, they rely, because they're such heavy, bulky birds, they rely purely on riding the thermals in order to fly. So whilst they can fly short distances by flapping their wings, ideally what they need is warm air currents that help to keep them flying up in the sky. So they're going to wait until the day heats up a little bit and the ground starts to warm up, and as it does, hot air rises from the ground, and the vultures can take off and use that to do what's known as thermaling, which is riding the thermals. So I don't think they're here for any particular reason that there's a kill here. I think it's far more likely there was a kill somewhere around here, and it's all finished, and this is where they've decided to settle in for the night. Oh, careful. Now, Lucian, you say, isn't the bush unusually quiet, or is it too early for bird songs? I can hear Cape turtle doves. I can hear black-headed orioles. I heard that chagra earlier. But you're right, it is relatively quiet. You might also be seeing the contrast just because we're going into our dry season. And whilst the dawn chorus never stops, it's not quite as dramatic as it is in summer. Because in summer, of course, first of all, we've got more birds because the migratory species, most of them arrive during that time. But also, at the same time, there's a situation where most birds will breed during the rainy season. Vultures are the exception to that. They will breed in the dry season. They'll lay their eggs in the dry season. Not yet, but in maybe 1 or 2 months' time. I think it starts around the July, August that white-backed vultures will breed. But most birds lay their eggs in summer, or breed and mate in summer, which means that there's more need for being vocal because it's advertising territories and at the same time advertising their fitness and suitability as a mate or as a choice of mate. So you might just be seeing the contrast there. Also, we're in a slight dip, which again affects the way in which sound travels. So unless the birds are right up close to us, which none of them are at the moment, apart from these somewhat scraggly looking vultures. Right, let's do some investigating quickly on our Ayers versus Marshall eagle. One thing I can tell you it was definitely not was a black-chested snake eagle. And the reason I'm saying that is just because I opened that up on the page. Let's have a look at what the Ayers hawk eagle looks like underneath its wings, just to double check that I'm not going completely bonkers. It would be a nice one to add to your bird list. Give me 1 second. There's the Ayers. Definitely not. Definitely not. And I'll show you what I saw when that eagle took off. So I can completely see what Tayla means, and bear in mind, of course, you can't get a sense of scale when you're watching through the eyes of the camera. You can see it's sort of quite, what's the word? Quite barred underneath when it takes flight. So this is the Ayers hawk eagle. It would be the first time I've seen an Ayers hawk eagle in this area. There it is over there. That's the Ayers hawk eagle. It looks very similar to the African hawk eagle. Now, the reason that I think it's not one of them, let me just switch over here, is I saw almost complete black under the wings as it took off and a white chest. And I'll double check myself. I also saw much more of a pronounced crest on top. It's the white patch around the face that was confusing me initially. But if it is a juvenile on its way to turning into an adult, then that would be acceptable, because at some point the juveniles have to slowly but surely get rid of their lighter coloured feathers and get to a darker stage, which also would explain the scruffiness to it. It did have a very scruffy look, but I'll double check the screenshots as well when I get back, and I'll check for a second opinion. Now let me think about it and continue on our drive. We're still looking for those spotted hyenas and not birds of prey, not at the moment. But the good news is Tayla is up, healthy and out walking.
Good morning, everybody, and of course welcome again if you have just joined us to Safari Live, your live and interactive safari. My name is Tayla, and on camera with me today is Sebastian, and we have got the most gorgeous view of the moon. As you can see, it is absolutely gorgeous. Now, we're very, very fortunate to actually sit and witness this just as the moon is setting, and hopefully we're going to get an amazing view of the sunrise too. It has just come out, but we've got a little bit of a way to go before we can, of course, get a decent view of it. I was hiding this away from you, but I won't tell you what this is just yet. We'll just carry on. Herbie is just standing off to the left. Are you having a snack, Herbie? It's breakfast time. Now we've caught Herbie having his morning snack, and it's very important though. One thing I must tell you when you are out on a walk is carry water, which Herbie's got plenty of, and take a few snacks too, because when you are walking around, especially during the heat of the day, you'll be surprised as to how exhausted you can get, and it's quite nice to have a little snack every now and then. Now, if you have got any questions, hashtag Safari Live, of course, on Twitter. That's the only way to get hold of us. And I just want to say thank you very much for all of your messages about my concern in health. I am okay. The migraine's not going to get rid of me that quickly, but it did give me a little kick yesterday, but I kicked it back. I did the taekwondo, sorted it out, so I'm good to go again. So thank you for all of that. And just because I was sitting in final control, very interesting about that bird that Jamie saw. Now obviously she saw it much better than I could see it. And like we often say, is whenever we put things on camera, it looks a lot different to what it looks like in real life in terms of trying to gauge size, and we see that clearly with the hyenas. So it's very, very interesting, and it would be quite nice to see what all of you think as well, just being able to compare the picture right in front of you, perhaps with a picture from the internet. And now the reason why I thought, and obviously I don't know how big the bird was, is why I thought it was an Ayers hawk eagle, just because they're the African hawk eagle, the immature version, is normally a lot browner, and I don't know if you noticed, I thought it was actually an adult, but it had a little crest on the back of its head, which an African hawk eagle doesn't have, and it had a lot of barring on its chest that was quite black. And normally with the martial eagles, with the juveniles, they don't have a lot of streaking on the breast. They're actually quite pale. They're still got to develop all of those spots, but it's very difficult to tell. Of course, you get different morphs wherever you go, color morphs. Some might mature differently, could be at a different stage. They do take a few years to gain their adult plumage, but very interesting nonetheless, and it would be nice to hear what you guys all think. But I'm sure Jamie is 100% incorrect in saying it's probably a juvenile martial eagle. We have been seeing them around this area quite often. Oh, here's the sunrise. Let's go a little bit further, but we're going to get the most beautiful. Now Sebastian and I are marching because we want to show you this beautiful view. Look at that. I can't believe we managed to get both of them. I thought it was going to take a little bit longer. Wow. Now, William, you're wondering if the hawk eagle is a hawk or an eagle. It's somewhere in between, I suppose. It's got all the feathers down towards its talons, which does make it an eagle, with, of course, the exception of the African fish eagle, which theoretically is not a true eagle because it lacks feathers on its legs, but of course this is an adaptation that it's had to have, because if you had feathers all the way down to your feet and you were to try and snatch up a fish from the water, you'd probably end up face planting, which wouldn't be an ideal way to catch your dinner. So they've, of course, over years and years have lost all of those feathers, and that helps them, of course, with their hunting. Hawk eagles are specialists at catching birds. They're incredible at that, but they do eat a variety of different things. So, like I said, it's sort of something in between. I think they're a little bit more agile than an eagle, though eagles are unbelievable in the sky. But just the way that they're designed, it seems that to me that their wings are slightly more slender. They're a lot quicker, and then they're very specialists at catching birds straight out of the sky, which is quite incredible. Now, there's also been a lot of chatter, I know, because the wild dogs were seen at the pan, so we're going to check this area very quickly while we're here, and hopefully we'll help Jamie pick up some tracks and give her a direction as to which way they've gone. However, Tristan has now got a view of the sunrise, and I know he's been looking forward to showing you it.
Well, we do indeed. It's not the best view at this stage. It's kind of obscured by a few branches. We were trying to see if we couldn't get to a high point that we could see it. And I was just saying to Senzo, what's amazing is how far the sun has shifted to the north in the last few months. When I first started at Safari Live, this road, the sun was rising directly above the road. And you can see now it's now pushed very, very, very far to the left. That's how far it now is rising, a little bit further north. But I'm a little bit sad because while you were with Jamie and Tayla, we had the most incredible sighting, but the gremlins got into Rusty and we weren't able to show you. So I want to show you on my phone because my batteries on my camera even died as well. But we had some ground hornbills, and we managed to then get the moon sitting behind the ground hornbills. So that's what the picture was. Unfortunately, like I say, it is with my phone, so sorry, there's a bit of glare on it. But there was the ground hornbills and the moon was right behind them. And it was the most amazing thing. And they were calling, so they were making that hollow sound that they make. It was really, really very, very spectacular. And they were sitting grooming for a while, and we tried to reposition a few times to get some signal, but unfortunately there was none where we were. But isn't that pretty? It's a wonderful way to start the day, indeed. So very, very cool. Fortunately though, like I say, our ground hornbills flew away and the moon went further down, and when we did get reception we could no longer see either of them, so unfortunately for that. But we're still going slowly along the northern boundary. No signs of lions at this stage. So William, you're wondering if any of the species that we see are on the endangered list. Well, there are quite a number of them. Those ground hornbills are on the endangered list. They are, unfortunately, their numbers are going down at a rapid rate due to loss of habitat and loss of nesting sites. They require really big trees to nest in, and a lot of those big trees have either been cut down by humans, or we've had a lot of issues here in the Kruger Park area with floods that have washed away massive trees on river areas that were great nesting sites for ground hornbills. So they're on the endangered list. We've got pangolins on the endangered list. We've got wild dogs, which Tayla is trying to help follow up, and we are keeping an eye on while we're traveling along the boundary here. So they are on the endangered species list. Then there's a number of antelope species within Kruger National Park system that is on the endangered species list. So we've got things like sable, roan, eland, Liechtenstein's hartebeest, which all occur east of us. There was a sable that was coming in last year during the drought towards Nkoro and sometimes into Torchwood and Buffels Hook, but it unfortunately was eaten by lions. But those are all animals that are on the endangered species list. Rhinos, elephants have been added onto them now as well. So there's quite a number that we see that are there. You must remember that there's also different sort of levels of being endangered. There's endangered and then there's critically endangered. So critically endangered would be black rhinos, wild dogs. Endangered is cheetah, lions, elephants, those kind of things. So quite a number of species are, and unfortunately that's because of a massive loss over their range areas. They reckon that lions and even elephants are occurring in only about 20% of where they used to occur, and their numbers have really dropped dramatically. So there is quite a number of endangered species. Luckily for us in the Kruger Park system, a lot of those endangered species across the world are actually in healthy numbers. So we have a really healthy population of elephant, we have a good population of lions and leopard, and even our wild dogs. While they're not a huge population, there's only about 240 of them in the Kruger, it's still a stable population and we're still seeing them, and there's sort of ups and downs and small increases here and there, so making sort of some strides with that at the end of the day. So it's all a little bit positive for the Kruger system. The only one that's really under threat at the moment is rhinos through poaching, and they're the ones that are losing numbers at a rate that's really not sustainable. The other ones that are battling a little bit in Kruger, and it's because of the increased rainfall over the last 10 years, are some of the sort of drier area antelopes. So things like eland and roan and sable and that Liechtenstein's hartebeest that I was talking about, they don't do that well when it's very, very wet. Unfortunately, that attracts a lot of, when it rains, it attracts a lot of grazers like wildebeest and zebra, which attracts the lions, and they then get hammered by lions. They're also very susceptible to diseases. So the diseases that we talk about are like foot and mouth, anthrax, rinderpest, all of those, which absolutely hammer those populations. Now, I am going to stop shortly just so I can actually show you what these antelope look like, because here at Djuma we unfortunately don't see too many of them. So I'm just going to try and find my book quickly so that I can show you the different antelope species. Let's just quickly get, now it should be fairly easy to find. Now seems like we do not have them. Where are they? They must be here. So it seems like I don't actually have them in this book. Now that's not ideal at all. I thought they would have definitely been in here, but I think it's because they are quite endangered for this area that they're actually not featuring in this book, because they're not at all that common. And I don't have my normal mammals field guide with me, so it might be a bit of a problem, but let's see. I'm sure I can find them. I have enough books in here to last a lifetime, so I'm sure we can find what we are looking for. There we go. So the most beautiful one of them all, and the one that we are most likely to see in this area of the rarer antelopes, is this guy. Now unfortunately it's not the best picture, but there it is a sable antelope. So it's that jet black animal with that white stomach there and little white rump and white face, and then these beautiful horns that curve back, and sometimes those horns can get so long that they end up almost being on the back of this animal. So they really are very, very pretty. And we had a big bull, like I said, last year coming into this area, but it was unfortunately eaten by lions. There is a population of them that hangs around just to our western side, our eastern side of the Sabi Sands. They're sometimes seen on Mala Mala. It's a herd of them that come in. So maybe if it's another sort of dry year, we might be able to find them. So there's a few of those. Those are quite sort of populated. And I'm going to try to see if I can find the roan antelope, which is the one that is really very rare in Kruger. Unfortunately, anthrax and foot and mouth really have done a lot of damage to roan antelope, and they've ended up being almost non-existent in the Kruger area. The last I heard, their numbers were very, very, very few and far between, and they were saying that there's probably somewhere around 40 of them only left in the Kruger Park, so very, very rare. Now you can see they've almost got a similar face to a sable, but they've got the most ridiculous ears, long ears, and then that sort of tawny colored coat. And they also get horns that start to curve, but not nearly as much as the sable. They don't get nearly as long, and unfortunately very few of them left. Although I was lucky enough to see one a few days ago. I was in the Kruger Park and a little bit further north of where we are, and there was one that was walking around, so that was very, very special. But we don't see them very much at all. So there's one of our endangered antelopes. So hopefully one day, you never know, one of these will come through and we'll be able to show them to you in real life. Okay, well, we're going to carry on and, like I say, see if there's not any sign of lions. The only sort of sign I have had is that roaring we had early, which was very, very far south. And so while we carry on looking and trying to see if we can't find anything, let's go across to Tayla, who I believe is also on a search of her own for the wild dogs.
We were on the search for wild dogs, and then we got the update from Rexon that apparently they were heading north. I think he's on the tracks at the moment, so we've decided to focus on trying to find the hyena den. We've been having a lot of chats around camp, and we all suspect, not just me, but all of us suspect that den where the 2 new cubs are and Ribbon was denning, we haven't seen any activity there for quite some time. So there's definitely a possibility that they could have moved. So we'll let the guides in the cars do the wild dogs, because it is quite difficult to try and keep up with them. So I think they might have a better chance of finding them. And then while we're on foot and we're able to meander through some of these animal pathways and go and check some of the old hyena dens. So that's what we're going to start with. And what you were looking at is actually urine from hyenas. I think obviously someone has got very excited. Perhaps there was a little greeting ceremony of some sort. This is not from an elephant bull. And they came running down here, as you can see, urinating all over the place. This is quite funny actually to see. I haven't seen something like this in a long time. Now I want to try and find a nice clear track. That's why I'm just walking up ahead, seeing if we can show you all the hyena tracks. But unfortunately, with Philemon's Dip being quite a busy road, it's almost impossible to see tracks here after all the guides have come through, which is of course not a problem because they've checked and there haven't been any lion or leopard tracks. It's just been the hyena activity. And with the light, oh, there's a very faint hyena track over here, but it is quite difficult to see. I wonder if this is perhaps not from a male. I don't think you'll be able to see it on the camera. I don't know. The light is very dark. But here's the paw, the back pad, and then the toes are here. So I wonder if this is not a male. Just from the size of the track, it's not a particularly big track, but also again in this light, not being illuminated from behind, the track becomes almost invisible in the ground, so it is very, very difficult to see. But it's not particularly fresh in the sense that this didn't happen 5 minutes ago. I think that this was from much earlier this morning, a few hours ago. It looks like it's already started to crust a little bit. You can see that. So I think it was from a couple of hours ago, maybe even into the late evening last night. So that's quite exciting. Now what we need to do is we've got where their tracks are going up towards, these tracks are going up towards quarantine. We've seen lots of them. Now we need to we need to figure out where they've stopped and turned around and which route they've taken back, because we don't want to carry on following all of their tracks. We want to take a little bit of a shortcut now, and we want to get those tracks going home, leading us back towards the den. Because quite honestly, there could be a couple more females that have got cubs too, and we might just not even know. With all this thick vegetation at the moment, it's quite difficult. It takes a little bit longer for animal pathways to start to develop. So what we might think is perhaps just a route that Impala are taking to get to water, or an elephant, a couple of herds of elephants used once upon a time, could be actually a nice big pathway leading down into a drainage line, taking you straight to a den. But again, as wonderful as what the rain is, and it's great because it provides food for all of the different herbivores out here, which is of course important for all of the predators, it does make game viewing very difficult. So when coming on safari, I would not recommend coming on safari at this time, because the chances of you missing things, it's not great for photo opportunity. Rather come in the winter months when the grass starts to drop a bit. But here you go, you can clearly see the animal pathways are definitely starting to develop, but they're not quite so prominent just yet. They've still got a long way to go, but that will come fairly quickly. So that's our goal this morning, to find hyena den. Okay, this isn't. Now, Douglas, you're wondering how often do hyenas shift dens in a year? I think it depends on a lot of things. If they've got a nice big den and they're quite happy to stay there, they might live there for a few months. But if you find that other predator activity starts to build up around the den, they might sort of need to move off. Also, again, build up in parasites has a lot to do with it. Mites, ticks, that type of thing. They could also encourage them to move off. But I think it's hard to say. Maybe a couple of times a year, maybe 2 or 3 times. But again, I'm just busking. It could be dependent to a particular clan. They might have a certain amount of times that they like to change dens compared to another clan, the clan on Elephant Plains or something like that, because they seem to be using the same hyena den for quite some time. So if there's no need to move, what's the point? I suppose it's like you and I. It's not just for us. Maybe it would be a luxury. It's difficult to go and find a den that can accommodate everybody. So I don't think they have to if they don't want to, and if there is no need. But again, it's a topic of discussion. But Jamie has got a different view of the sunrise.
A really beautiful view of the sunrise, a sort of a dual view of the sunrise. One the actual sky and one the reflection in twin dams. And that really is very pretty. It tells us two things. One, sunrises are spectacular in South Africa, and two, I don't think there's a hippopotamus today in twin dams, because the water is not quite like glass, but not far off. Really, really pretty. Here we go. Here's a nice dawn chorus spot. You can hear lots of birds singing. Or I could until I mentioned it and they all went quiet. It is really very pretty. Pearl-spotted owlets calling. A pair of pearl-spotted owlets calling. Weavers, francolins, spurfowls. A lovely selection of birds. But Caden would like to know about mammals, and would like to know what is the rarest mammal that we see out here. A pangolin is very high up the list. That is a sort of a scaly anteater type creature that wanders around at night and eats ants. It's one of the most trafficked vehicles. Goodness. It's one of the most trafficked animals in the world in terms of the illegal trade in animal parts. So pangolins are quite high up there. The pangolins in this area are safe, of course, and protected, but not in other parts of Africa and Asia. And then rare antelope as well. I mean, at least for this area. There's a couple of endangered ones. They're slowly but surely making a recovery in terms of numbers in Africa. But things like sable and roan, those are really very, very rare to see in this area. They prefer the more arid areas, so the northern parts of Kruger. I know Tristan has mentioned that he saw one lone roan around about Mapani camp in the Kruger, which of course is open to this area. And there was one sable seen on the dam camera a year ago, I think. I can't even remember when it was now. I know it was in the height of the drought. It was last year. So sable antelope, which would be a very rare thing to see indeed. And of course we were so excited that the next morning we both went out. Scott and myself were out on drive. And Scott was so desperately excited to see a sable that he thought an Inyala was a sable. He saw the flash of dark and immediately called final control for a crash cut, which is basically where they switch between feeds without any warning. It turned out to be an Inyala. We did tease Scott about that for quite a while. Mistakes happen, though. Right, there's definitely no hippopotamus in this dam. I was hoping there might be a little leopard face peeking out at us if we sat still for a while, in the form of Shongile or Hosanna, but I can't find any footprints of them walking back north. I think they've both gone south into Little Gowrie. I don't see any sign of them returning back onto Djuma, but the morning's still early, so they could still come back. I do, however, see lots of hyena tracks up and down and up and down. I'm going to go figure out where they are. And while I do that and search for one of the most dominant predators, Tristan is on the search for the most dominant predator.
Well, we are, but we're not having any luck really at this stage. There's no signs of any lions anywhere in this area, so I think our search from the northern side is not going to be very fruitful. I might start heading slowly back towards the west, because I know there was one Birmingham male that was on Simambili yesterday that was coming towards Vuyatela, so maybe he's gone into Arathusa, so I might start heading that way again. But I don't think we're going to have much luck with lions on the northern side of this area. Like I said, there's no tracks, there's no audio, no anything like that. So alas, we shall just keep on trying. And while I'm sort of cutting back to the west, as we're doing now, we're going to try and not see if there's any sign of the dogs. The interesting thing is I did the boundary and there's no tracks that I can see crossing to the north. So it seems like they must be somewhere around here. Maybe they've gone a little bit further to the west. So we'll go past sort of Gallagher Pan and that area and just have a little look around. Maybe they're going to go and interrupt our wildebeest herd that we had this morning and give them a rude awakening. But I don't see any sort of signs of them so far. I've been looking around. The problem is also if it's the 3 wild dogs, those 3 move quite a bit and their tracks are quite easily sort of obscured because there's only 3 of them and they're quite small, light animals. Often on surfaces like this that are quite hard, you actually don't pick up their tracks very easily at all. So it might be quite tough to find them, but we shall try nonetheless and just see what we can find. But our lions have been very, very, very elusive of late. Like I say, I haven't seen a lion in I can't remember how long on Djuma. I think the last time I had lions on Djuma was, I think, one of the Birminghams on Vertical Access, which must have been over 2 months ago. So that was really a long time. And it's, I think, time to break that drought. We need our lions to come back. So the Nkomo Pride, if you're listening, please return back to Djuma. It would be nice to see you again. I wonder how big those cubs are. They must be quite big by now. I mean, they're pretty much a year old. We're in May now. So they must be close to a year old, or maybe even, yes, a year old is right. So they must be quite big by now. It would be nice to actually see them and see how they've developed and gotten on. Right, so we're going to still carry on slowly back to the west and see if we don't get more luck. And while we're doing that, I believe Tayla is investigating hyena dens, much like Jamie has been this morning.
Now I'm going to be whispering, so I do apologize if I'm talking so softly. We decided to come and have a quick look to see if this den is still active just off of Philemon's cut line. And initially we didn't see very many tracks coming through. However, we're probably about 40 meters from the den now. That's why we've been quietly. We're putting a lot of vegetation, and we found this evidence over here. Now this is where obviously Mom has been laying around. There's some big tracks. You can see some of the big tracks over here. And then clearly, look at these smaller ones. So these, just in comparison, if I put my hand like that, you can see these are the young hyena cubs that have been playing here too, probably jumping up and down and on top of Mom. So this is quite cool. So we're not going to spend too much more time here. We're actually going to move away because the little ones could be right inside the den and we don't want to disturb them. But this is a good sign, so it must mean that we're just missing feeding hours when she does come back and come out. So let's start heading out. But we're going to try and move out here now as quickly and as quietly as we can. It's a good sign. And we're going to send you across to Jamie, and hopefully between the 2 of us we'll either find you some hyenas or some wild dogs.
That's very interesting. So if Taylor's still seeing tracks of those cubs, I assume she's at the Philemon's cutline den. Yesterday I did not see one footprint of a cub. I wonder if it's not a situation like we had at Aubrey's Road, where they're moving just between 2 dens very close to each other. That's also possible, especially as the cubs get older. That's very, very interesting. So I assume Taylor was at the Philemon's cutline den. Maybe we'll just give them a moment to settle down, because they probably heard the footsteps of the walkers. We'll give them a bit to settle down, and then we'll go and we'll double check there and see if they pop their heads out. I'm hoping that's the case. Seriously surprised there was not a scuff mark or a footprint there yesterday. It'd been completely washed clean by the rain. But maybe if they moved and they went, I don't know, speculation. They might have moved and gone to a den and it got rained on and they decided it actually wasn't that good of a place. Went back to the old one. When last did you see hyenas at the den site? Here's a question for all of you. I was away over the weekend. I know that I hadn't seen them for quite a while before that. But when last did you see the hyena cubs at Philemon's cutline den? That's what I agree. Taylor and I are on the same page. Tayla said that if we do go that way, we should go a bit further south, which is what I tried to do last night, but I got lost. Not lost, I got trapped in the dark trying to off-road. I agree. Tayla thinks we should go a little bit further to the south, where there's another termite mound that they might be excavating as a den site. And whenever we see them enter into Philemon's cut-line den, they always come from that direction. And that's where there was an old den site in the past. I think so too. I'm on the same page as Tayla. I'm just checking this area here where James found a den site. It's not far from the Philemon's cut-line den, but James found a den site briefly, or at least a place where hyenas were resting and hiding out. Now how on earth, where was it? It was somewhere here. Was it? No, it was a bit further on. Sorry. The bush has changed. It was a little bit further around this corner, I think. Don't see any signs of them. No tracks on this road. It's so funny, after losing them for 8 months, we are so determined that they're not going to slip through our fingers once again, that there's this concerted effort to search for them. No, there's no sign of them here. Hyenas, where are you? Let's just check around Treehouse Dam. Let's check and see whether any of them have gone for a drink there. And then we can start heading, once those cubs relax a little bit, we can start heading in that direction. Just in general, it's been very, very quiet over the last few days, which is normal for this time of year. There's lots of food around, the animals are far more dispersed. The lions, I know Tristan chatted about it yesterday, the lions, it's very normal for them. Ooh. Might not be a woodlands, but there is a kingfisher. Could it be the rare grey-headed, or is it a brown-hooded? I think it's a brown-hooded kingfisher. Yeah, brown-hooded kingfisher. I was hoping it was the grey-headed, which would be a new one for lots of you. And one of our, what do we call them? Oh, there's certain species of bird that just somehow we see them when we're off air, and then we just don't quite manage to get them on camera. And a grey-headed kingfisher is one such example. Now, the brown-hoodeds, unlike the woodlands kingfisher, actually stick around all through the year, so they don't disappear at all. Got so excited. But you can see quite a sort of a streaky underpart to it, and a dark stripe around its eye. And the grey-headed is a lot lighter in colour around the head, and it's got patches of brown, which this particular kingfisher does not have. Chestnut, the book describes it as. I got excited. That's still exciting. We don't see brown-hooded kingfishers all that frequently. And it looks very, very pretty in the morning sunlight. Thanks, Megan. Megan agrees. And the woodlands have definitely disappeared off. Brent keeps updating me on the movements of the various birds. He says the cuckoos had reached Kenya and have now moved on. John, you apparently are on 97 on your bird list. Wait. John, I think we should try and get you to 100. I feel a vague sense of deja vu. John, did you send through? Yes, you did tell us that you were on 97 a couple of days ago, and I tried to bring you up to 100, but we didn't succeed that one day. This vague feeling that was you, John. We need to get you up to around neat 100. And try that this morning. Try and do some unusual birds for you. Definitely having a feeling of deja vu. Does anyone else remember that conversation that we had? Oh, I know why we got distracted. It was because we had that amazing elephant sighting. And I completely forgot about the quest to bring a viewer's bird list up to 100. Oh, look at that pose. Look at the turquoise shimmer. That is stunning. And all of that made by basically bending and reflecting light through the keratin on the feathers. It's interesting. It'd be interesting to really delve into the evolution and the migration, the movements of birds. The fact that you get certain species, especially in the same family, like the Kingfisher family, the brown-hooded, the pied, the giant Kingfisher, they all stay, and then you get the woodlands, the malachites and the pygmies that move about at different seasons. Be interesting to delve into the evolution, because the brown-headed and the woodlands eat essentially the same thing. And Mita, who is 8 years old, you want to know why are their beaks so long? For a couple of reasons. One, it's a very, very strong beak, and for a bird, despite the fact that it's called a kingfisher, most of them actually feed off insects. So they don't necessarily feed off fish. It makes sense for a bird with a long bill to catch fish. So the pied kingfisher, the giant kingfisher, they can spear their bills into the water and catch a little fish. But for the other ones, insect eaters, you'll find it with bee eaters and with kingfishers. They've got a slightly longer bill. And one of the reasons is because it basically allows them to catch things like wasps or beetles that can squirt acid or sting or something along those lines. So they can grab an insect away from the eyes, away from the sensitive eyes where that insect sting could potentially hurt them, and then crush them. And of course, the longer your bill, the greater your crushing power in that sense, if you're going for length rather than for stockiness. So they're able to crush the insects that they catch without letting the insects hurt them. But it is interesting. Brown-hoodeds feed off essentially the same thing as woodlands, and yet they stay and woodlands go. We are providing ourselves with beautiful distractions in the forms of birds, but the hyena hunt continues, and Tayla's moved away from the den site.
We have indeed moved away from the one den site, and in doing so, we've managed to pick up some tracks of potentially another area where they could be visiting. If you look very, very carefully, you can see that there are hyena tracks over here. I shall use my porcupine quill that I found on the ground. Here are the tracks, and they're actually going, and I'm going to show you, they're going straight down an animal pathway, just like I was telling you that they would do, going through here. And now we're at the den, the second den that Herbie and James found one morning. Now what we want to do is, we don't obviously want to go in on foot and stick our heads down a termite mound. That's the wrong way to do it. Sometimes it's actually easier to do it in a car, because these animals are used to our presence in the car. They feel, I think, a little bit safer than three of us, especially the way that Sebastian looks with a big antenna poking out of his head. He must look exceptionally scary. And then, of course, Herbie and I walking around. So, very, very exciting. We're going to do a quick circle around here, and then if we don't have any more tracks coming out, we know that they're still using dens in here, which there are plenty. But let's go across to Tristan. He's found some southern ground hornbills.
We have indeed, so we found some more of them. So not the ones that were up in the tree with the full moon. This is a different lot of them, and they're just moving around doing their morning foraging. So they're going through this long golden grass and looking for any insects, grasshoppers, snakes, chameleons, tortoises, and varying other descriptions of animals that they could feed on. And so it's quite beautiful just to watch them kind of moving around and going about their business. I always love how they use those big eyes to look, and sometimes see that they'll sort of tilt their head and then they go down and they peck, and it's always a surprise sort of lottery as to what they come up with. Now I see there's a young one that's starting to come out now. There we go, there's two. So there should be three of them on the right side of the road, and then there's another one that's about to come across the road now as well. So just on the left hand side, there it comes, which looks like a younger one. I can't see nicely, but it looks like a younger one. There we go. So you can see its red is not nearly as bright as what the others are. So that's probably about a sort of 4-year-old individual, and it will reach its sort of fully red face at about sort of 5 to 7 years. So it's still got a bit of growing to do, but it's out of that juvenile phase where they get the yellow throat skin. Now see, there's another one coming. So how many have we got here now? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there's 3 in a tree behind us as well. So there's 8 of them, which is really, really nice. There comes another one. Look at those eyes. Don't they have the most incredible eyes? They've almost got this sort of beady look to them. And you can imagine how well they can see with such a large eye. It's what they rely on mostly. As a bird that forages through grassland, when you've got big eyes like that, it means that you can spot all the prey that you need to find in order to sustain a body like that. They really are incredible birds, and we've been talking about endangered birds and endangered animals, and this is one of the more endangered birds we have. We Siberia Zoomy, wondering how long the beaks can get. Well, I'm actually not 100% sure. I've never seen a statistic on how long the beak gets, but as we see that adult kind of darting off into the long grass, that's about as long as they get. They don't really get too much longer. Oh, we're on fast forward now. He's wanting to catch up to the rest of the flock that is in the long grass that has disappeared behind the tree. But I'm actually not 100% sure. Like I say, I've never seen a statistic on it, or have sort of heard anything about how long they actually get. Just from judging, from seeing them here, I would say that they probably get to about 40 to 50 centimeters long, which would be, I'm not quite sure what that would be in inches. We'd have to ask Megan in final control to convert that for us, but it would be somewhere around that area, I would imagine. I don't think they would get too much longer than what we've seen on these guys now. So, but I've honestly no clue as to what the actual measurement. That would just be my guess, or my sort of estimate as to how big they would be. So we've had really good luck with ground hornbills this morning. We had that beautiful sighting of them up in the tree and sort of foraging around. But other than that, Senzo and I were talking about how quiet it is. There's sort of no sounds. It's definitely got that winter feel again, where everything quietens down quite a bit. And even the impalas have been quite quiet this morning, which is strange, because they're still in full rutting mode. So there should be lots of noise from impalas around the sunrise, where you hear the males chasing the females and shouting at one another. But this morning it's been all quiet, which is quite strange. So hopefully our luck will change. We're going to check Triple M south and north and see if there's any sign of those lions coming across. If not, we might actually just take a turn into Arathusa and see if there's anything lurking around there. We never know, maybe we get lucky with shadow and cub. That would also be quite nice. So that's sort of the plan for the rest of the morning, I think, is just to go and explore and go and see what's happening on Arathusa. We haven't been there for a few days, so maybe we'll get lucky with something there. So Megan, there we go, Megan in final control has helped us 20 inches. So yeah, I'd say that's about right. 20 inches would be my guess. We'll have to see and check and try and start some work with ground hornbills, whether they've measured their beaks and know what the average length is. Right, well, we're going through a area where our signal's not good, so let's go across to Jamie, who I think is also just bumbling about and hoping to find some animals somewhere.
I hope I find some animals. I hope in particular I find some spotted hyenas, or failing that, any mammal. Whoa, I found some mammals! Look, I found mammals! Surprise! Not the mammals I was expecting, but mammals nevertheless. Please don't stab me with a porcupine quill. Good morning, Herbie. Morning, Seb. Yes, okay. Hello. You're the first mammal I've seen this morning.
Oh, I feel so special.
You are very special.
Yay.
You come as a great relief.
Oh, my goodness. So what would you like us to do? Any particular animal behavior?
Don't tempt me.
No. Take that back. I feel like
Yeah.
Should have
That opened up a world of possibilities.
I love the colour of Ferg's jacket.
It is
No,
actually.
just admire
I didn't even notice.
Yeah. It's very nice.
Yes, Ferg is dressed in a, what would you describe it as? Mustard yellow?
Mustard yellow, yes.
Mustard yellow and a camo beanie. I can't actually see the top of his head. It blends in so well. Right. On that note, I'm going to go see if maybe they've popped out.
Okay.
Cool. I agree with you. That I think there's an old den site that side that I think they're using.
I think we'll do
They might just be.
in and out, yeah. You see there's a well-worn animal pathway going straight to the
I know
ground.
exactly
We've
which
got-
one you mean.
And there's fresh tracks there now, so
Cool.
maybe they're in there.
Marvelous.
Okay, well, we'll keep searching.
Cool. All right. Thanks for being the first non-feathered thing I saw. Bye-bye, Herbs. Now, Tony, you want to know how many dens would hyena have? Speaking of our hyenas and moving on from our bushwalkers. Tony, it depends on the size of the clan. A big clan can have several active den sites at once. So it depends. On this particular area, our particular clan, we know of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 den sites that they use on a relatively regular basis. There could easily be more that we don't know about. It's impossible for us to know everything that goes on out here. You'll find that it'll be different for different spotted hyenas. Brent and I were having this conversation last night about the differences in behavior between hyenas here and hyenas in the Mara, where it's much more open, the clans are much larger, they do a great deal more hunting. It's a very different approach. And I think that we're going to learn more about hyenas as the years go by, because I think there is a startling difference between a lot of the research that's done on, because a lot of the research is based on hyenas in the Mara or hyenas in the areas like the Kalahari Desert. And I think we're going to learn a lot more, just in the same way that I think that wild dog behavior in this area, wild dog hunting, is so different to the way that they do things in the more open areas where they have to chase down and they have to hunt they have to tire out their prey, because the spaces are just that much more open. Now, I think we're going to learn a lot more, but we know of 7 in this clan, and this clan is what? Guess at around about between 15 and 20, depending on the sub-adults dispersing. I'm just doing one more loop. I just want these cubs to calm down a little bit, because I'm sure they got a little bit of a surprise. And their instinct will be to stick in the den, but I don't want it to get too late either, because hyena cubs have sleeping patterns just like human beings do. Now, Neen, you want to know if Ribbon will be taking the cubs with her to kills. Not yet. Spotted hyenas have quite an extended lactation period, up to 1.5 years in some recorded cases. So I would suggest no, not yet. However, depends on her ranking. So higher ranking females, if they're sharing a den site, will take food back to the cubs when they're ready, usually starting at around about 7 to 8 months old. The cubs start to chew on solid food. They'll still be suckling though, and from there the lower ranking females will have to take their cubs out earlier to go with them to the kills, because the higher ranking females won't allow the behavior of taking food back to the den if they're there. There's so many tracks here. Okay, we're going to just check this junction up ahead, and then we're going to go back and check there. And fresh hyena tracks on top of vehicle tracks here. And absolutely, David, hyenas do share dens. They absolutely... Fergie, you try to look at the view there.
It's okay, I was going to have a wee look at the...
Oh, right, sorry about that. And sort of skimming over them. Sorry, David, hyenas absolutely will share den sites. It's very common to see more than one set of cubs at a den site itself. It's great. You've got the advantage of numbers. The cubs get a friend to play with. or several friends to play with. They learn from the older cubs. Sometimes there are situations where cubs are killed in that kind of an environment, because let's say you've got there's two situations. Let's say the matriarch has cubs and a slightly lower ranking female has cubs. No matter what that lower ranking female does to intervene in the play of the cubs, she'll get into trouble from the matriarch. The matriarch will get cross if she tries to intervene, if she in any way shows any kind of threatening behavior towards the matriarch's cubs. So if the matriarch's cubs are much larger, there are situations, recorded cases, where the matriarch's cubs have killed smaller cubs. Or in a situation where it's the other way around, the older cubs will often get into trouble from the matriarch if they in any way bully her cub, if it's a smaller cub. So it can create conflict situations, but for the most part it's actually a very beneficial process for them to share dens. Right, we've done a circuit and we have found tracks but no hyenas. We're going into the hyena den. While we do, Tayla's found tracks of an animal that she probably doesn't want to meet.
Jamie, you are quite correct in saying that I do not want to meet this animal, because this track that you see over here is from the world's largest buffalo, I can only imagine. Now, we're looking at 2 tracks, so don't be concerned. This entire thing is not one track. So I just want to point it out to you. If you follow the end of the stick around, this is the back foot. This is stepped over and onto the front foot that's left behind. But what I'm really amazed at is follow this. I'm going to draw it again. And that foot would probably come around over here. That is a massive buffalo track. That is huge. I cannot tell you how big that is. Obviously, it's not very accurate in terms of, I don't know how the shape of the foot looks behind. But this is just the outline of it. It is ginormous. I really, really, really do not want to bump into this buffalo, because I'm convinced that it's stopped eating grass and it's started eating animals in order to have gotten that big. Luckily for us, though, these tracks don't look like they were from last night. I think they were from a couple of days ago. And a few days ago, we actually had 3 very large buffalo bulls down at Treehouse Dam, and we're not too far from Treehouse Dam, in fact. So I'm wondering if one of those boys that we've seen were perhaps the culprit. So maybe you can go back and have a look. If you did take any screenshots of those 3 buffalo, we had, it was about 3 days ago or so. 3 days ago, Sunset Safari, and compare, but that is massive. I think that's as big as a buffalo could get, and that's of course just need big front feet. You've got a massive head with heavy horns, huge shoulders, and well, you've got to put that weight somewhere, and it wouldn't help to have dainty little legs like an impala. I think you need much bigger feet when you're the size of a buffalo. So that is spectacular. Now, Laura, you're wondering, how do giraffe and buffalo tracks differ? Well, let's draw them quickly. I'm going to find a nice piece of sand, nice canvas. Here's a good canvas. This sand is quite nice and soft. Now we shall just do the smoothing technique with the foot. You could use your hand as well, but I don't feel like getting dirty hands today. My hands are always filthy. Right, we'll give this a go. So firstly, Laura, giraffe tracks are much larger. I would say they're almost about the size of my shoe. So let's use my foot, which is a size 7. That looks like the most horrendous track of my foot anyway, but I moved it around. So a giraffe track reminds me, maybe this will help you. It sounds really silly, but when you start guiding, you need some way to try and remember it. That's the worst giraffe track that's probably ever been drawn in the history of time. I have to redo it. It reminds me of an iron. Oh, I don't think it goes like this. We'll do it like this anyway. So sort of like an iron that you iron clothes with. It's like someone put that down on the ground. So quite large, quite broad, of course. And then a buffalo track is a lot rounder, not quite as big. Like I said, that's an exception in terms of the size of a buffalo track. So, geez, goodness gracious, that is horrible. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm so sorry, Lara, that you've asked me this question, because I can't seem to draw now. Let's try that again. Yes, that's a little bit more buffalo-like. So on the buffalo footprint, the front foot is a lot rounder. Of course, it needs to be a bit broader, sort of splay out a bit more to carry all of that weight, whereas the back foot is slightly more on the square side. No, not like that. I can't do it. It's so hard. Don't look at that. That's horrible. We just do front feet. This is so embarrassing. I'm never doing this again. I'm going to have to go back and practice. But essentially, giraffe track much longer. The equivalent of a size 7 shoe. It looks like an iron has put its footprint on the ground. A buffalo track a lot rounder and looks exactly like a cow footprint. Remember, with buffalo and cows and even wildebeest too, they've got false hooves. And so if the ground allows it, if it's muddy enough, when that footprint sinks into the ground, you'll see the false hooves on the back of a buffalo track, which normally lies somewhere around there. With giraffe, you shouldn't see anything along those lines. So a lot longer, more rectangle in shape, much larger than a buffalo track. But we'll see if we can find you some real ones. And this is actually a good area to find tracks of those specimens because they're always around here. Let's carry on. Now, awkward wave. You're wondering if there are any animals. It's quite interesting. This is going to make you think a bit, for all of you that are listening. Are there any animals that can track tracks by using sight like we do? I don't think so. I think the animals, just trying to think, I don't think there's anything other than humans that use that technique. Animals will use their nose. They will use scent as sort of the most powerful way to track an animal, because most animals in their feet, and this is something I will talk about when we find a porcupine track, that's why I'm saving my porcupine quill, is that there is a strong odor that comes off of a lot of the animals. Sometimes you don't necessarily smell it when you're standing next to it, but when you see like all that hyena urine had a very strong pungent smell to it. Sometimes when lions and leopards urinate, you smell that too. Then I think with wildebeest and a couple of other animals, they've actually got scent glands in their feet. So as they're leaving tracks behind, they're also leaving a very, very small residue of some sort. We might not be able to smell it, but for a lion or a leopard, it would be quite easy. Even for another wildebeest, they would know that smell and they'd be able to follow and regroup to their herd. Look at impala, for example. They've got the metatarsal glands on their hind legs, which spray a pheromone, and that's a way, one of the theories as to why they have those glands is that when they are startled and they get spread out and chased off by predators, they're very easily able to regroup again just by, of course, sense of smell. So I think when it comes to tracking, they're not using eyes like we are, they're using sense of smell. Birds, however, they use their eyes, but in a different way. If you're a raptor, they look for the UV signatures that are left on little pathways by rodents. They're able to do that. So yes, in that terms, but they're not tracking footprints. Again, they're tracking a scent that has been left behind. So quite interesting that we are the ones that are unique to using our eyes to tracking things like that. But Tristan is also trying to track an animal of his own. We're searching for hyenas, wild dogs, anything that we can find. Tristan's, however, searching for the largest cat in Africa.
Well, my eyes must be failing me because so far I don't think we've seen very much with a heartbeat this morning. So it's been quite tough out here. There's been very little sign of any animals, and even the birds have been a little bit shy this morning. Besides the ground hornbills, there hasn't been too much going on. Now, in terms of lions, there are really no tracks to follow up on. There's apparently a mating pair in Torchwood, but that is very far from our boundary. And then there's been no sign of this male that was on Simambili. Nobody's been able to find him or find tracks for him yet. So they're still in that area looking, but there's definitely nothing that has crossed onto Djuma. So we're on Arathusa, just looking around. I found the tracks for the wild dogs. They're also way away already. They've run far south and they're almost crossing into Londolozi, according to the guys that are on the tracks there. So they've gone through Arathusa and out. So we're going to have to give up on that search. So now I'm just really looking, trying to see if there's anything on Arathusa that potentially nobody has been looking around for. So trying to see if there's any sign of shadow. It'd be nice to find some elephants if they're around. Tayla had those buffalo tracks, so we'll look around for those. I did hear some oxpeckers come fluttering over past me, so maybe there are some buffalo around. It would be nice. It's not always a case that the buffalo will be indicative of oxpeckers, but it does sometimes happen. So we'll try and check all these little mud wallows that are around this area. We're in an area of Arathusa where there's lots of mud wallows kind of linked together, so you often do find buffalo in this area, and we are in the prime sort of area for shadow as well, so definitely keep an eye out for either of those as well. But otherwise it's very quiet, very calm morning at this stage. So hopefully something will come out and break the chaos. Joshua, you're wondering whether we ever found out what the mate, or who the mating pair of leopards were. We didn't, but my suspicion is that the male is Djuma, because he was found the next morning not very far from that area where we had those tracks, which was yesterday morning, and he had killed a warthog very close by there, so I think it was him. And then in terms of the female, no idea. Nobody's found a female leopard in that area in the last few days. It could be one of the females from Buffelshoek or Tundi, but you never know. Right, now I believe Jamie has cracked the code and has found something very interesting, so let's go across to her very quickly.
Well, in theory I found something very interesting, but it's disappeared. I'm almost certain, I'm not going completely mad, I'm almost certain I saw a hyena cub at that termite mound, which fits perfectly with what we suggested earlier, and the fact that the den's just moved a little bit further to the south, and I've stopped here just in case they're feeling a bit nervous. That's the massive termite mound that we were talking about. I'm pretty sure that's the one that Tayla was suggesting would be a good place to look. I'm sure I saw a disappearing hyena around that termite mound, and it might have been an adult. I don't know if it was a cub. I just saw something brief and moving. But let's go a bit closer. I wanted to just get you a view first, but it didn't work out the way that I planned. Just hold on, everybody. Let's get here. This is following perfectly along. Oh, Megan. Can't keep calling me Tristan now. I'm going to start getting a complex. There's the game path that leads straight, and you can actually see it really very clearly. The path that the animals use, and they use it to get to Treehouse Dam, but they also... It's over here. You can actually see it looks a little bit like an old overgrown hiking trail, and that's what the hyenas have been using. Their tracks are still along here, and that is such a perfect potential den site. Let's go and see. It might have just been a hyena disappearing over the top of the den, might even have been lying in the sun, but let's go and see if there's activity there. Hold on, everybody. There's paths crisscrossing up and down, but this was the main one. Now it's disappearing. Okay, come on, hyenas. This, I think, is the old den site I was searching for yesterday. Oh, shades of deja vu, driving through this block searching for them the last time. Come on, hyenas. Come on. Now I've got to find a way in. You can see what I mean, though. There are termite mounds. There's one, that massive one over there that we've been looking at, but then there's also one off to the right of it. That's another good place. Okay, how am I going to get in here? I think I'm going to go this way. And there's old 2 tracks here, so this was a den once upon a time. By that I mean there's evidence that vehicles used to drive here. I wonder if we haven't got a situation like Aubrey's Road. Those tracks that were around Philemon's Cutline Den, those definitely weren't there. Definitely weren't there yesterday when we went through. Those are all fresh. Ah. Doesn't look like there's a single active hole here. That is disappointing. Let's just get round the other side. Maybe we get lucky. Wherever that hyena was, it has since disappeared, which is the other difficulty when trying to follow hyenas off-road. They move so fast. Let's check here. Oh! It's not a hyena. Could you have been... No. I'm slow, but I'm not that slow. There's a red-crested korhaan in there. It's just ducked out of view. Right. Nope. This is definitely not an active termite mound. The search continues. Well, at least Tristan's having more success than I am this morning. He's found you a squirrel.
Well, we haven't just found one squirrel, Jamie. We found the metropolis of squirrels. It might look like just one single dead leadwood, but there are squirrels everywhere on this tree. There's now 6 of them in total. Sorry, 5 of them that I've counted. So we've got the one on the lowest branch, which is busy sunning himself and running around. Then we've got the 2 that are huddled up together over there. And then right on top, we've got the 2 little ones that are also huddled in the sunshine. So there's a whole bunch of them here, and they're all just absorbing a nice little bit of sun, and they really are very, very cute. Those are the 2 little baby ones. Don't they have the sweetest little faces? Hello, guys. Are you cold? You can see they're all sort of puffed up and enjoying this morning light that is now coming down. Really, really cool. Now, it's very uncommon to see all this number of squirrels in one tree, and also very, very peaceful with one another. So quite strange that they're all kind of taking it easy. It must be a family unit of some sort, and I'm sure these 2, well, look at that guy, he's completely hanging out, got back legs stretched out, front legs stretched out, almost looks like he's at the beach. And it's amazing that they actually can grip onto a tree. I mean, it's hanging pretty much straight down, and it's still able to put its front feet out like that and still hold on tight. It really is quite incredible. Squirrels absolutely amaze me with their movements around a tree. They go up and down so quickly. It really is incredible to watch. Isn't that cool? Hello, guys. Are you just taking it easy for the morning? Let's see now what happens. Oh, big stretch, little yawn. This is amazing. Generally, when we find squirrels with a vehicle, they tend to run into their little holes, and they don't actually allow us to get too much of an insight into them. So these guys are being very, very nice to us, and to watch them go about their sort of morning business is very, very cool. Now, I wonder what this squirrel is doing. I wonder if it's not just keeping its incisors in check, given that they are part of the rodent family. Often those incisors grow very, very fast, and sometimes you'll find that oh, there we go, a little bit of greeting. I think that one, oh, there comes the other one. This is so cool. So, Gail, you're saying that it seems like much of the world has squirrel populations. It is indeed. If you go anywhere in the world and there seems to be some sort of a squirrel in that area, and it's probably because they are very, very successful in that they find great places to hide. They feed on pretty much all kinds of trees and seeds and nuts and those kind of things, which most parts of the world do have. Most parts of the world have trees, and so there is a food source for squirrels. And then the fact that they probably breed so fast means that they can produce enough numbers to survive in cities and areas where people have taken over that some of the other larger animals can't do. It's also, squirrels are sort of seen as quite friendly, cute little animals, so they're not exterminated like rats are. So you end up with a lot more of them. Also, they're quite entertaining to watch. Where are you going? Are you going into your hole? No. Looking around. Ah, there we go. Now we've got to do a bit of grooming. Got to make sure we're all in good condition. Little itch on the ear. Absolutely amazing. So, David, unfortunately we don't get red squirrels here. The only squirrel that we see in this particular part of South Africa is the tree squirrel. When we go down towards the Kalahari Desert, then you'll get the ground squirrels down there, which are much, much bigger than what these guys are. And the red squirrels, unfortunately, not in Africa as far as I know. They mostly are in the United States and Europe, and with the grey squirrels as well. And there's these really cool squirrels that I've seen in the United States which are black, which really look quite cool as well. So unfortunately this is the only type of squirrel that we get, these little tree squirrels that we see bouncing around, and you can see they're aptly named by the fact that they spend most of their time in trees. Very seldom will you see squirrels on the ground unless they're crossing from one tree to another. It's much safer for them in the trees. You can imagine now if some sort of predator came, these squirrels could then dart into one of those holes, whereas if they're on the ground it's much easier for them to be eaten, and there's a lot more predators on the ground. So there's snakes, there's leopards, there's lions, there's birds of prey. So MJ McNult, you're wondering if the big cats ever eat these squirrels and what are their predators? Well, big cats will eat them. So I've seen leopards go after squirrels many times, particularly leopards that are the age of Shongila and Hosana. So those younger leopards will often hunt squirrels, and they learn to sort of hunt by chasing squirrels up and down trees, and so that's a big predator for them. But in other predators would be birds of prey, so things like those martial eagles or crowned eagles, you'll find they go after them. Then you'll find snakes, so black mambas, cobras, pythons, they'll go after squirrels as well. And then your smaller cats, so wildcat, caracal, serval, if they can get to a squirrel, will also go after them. So they've got quite a number of predators out here, and that's why they live this arboreal life. And isn't that cute? Look at it. Look at how that one is being absolutely groomed, is being turned over and getting a thorough grooming. Isn't this amazing? Oh, this is really cool. So, Preetam, normally what happens with squirrels in terms of finding places to sort of shelter and nest is a natural hole in a tree. They won't make the hole itself. They might sort of prep it and add a little bit of grass in there, or kind of make it a little bit more insulated, but otherwise it's a natural formation in the tree itself. And that's why they like dead trees like this, because the bark has fallen off and these cracks and crevices are revealed, and these squirrels can then go inside there and spend time. So it's a perfect place. Oh, look at that. That squirrel is loving it. It's on its back, getting a little grooming on its tummy. Is that nice, little squirrel? It almost looks like it's dead. It's passed out. It's got its legs wide open. Even the front legs look as though they flopped to the side. Isn't that amazing? Like I say, it's so seldom that we actually get to see squirrels spending lots of time out and about. So to see them all kind of huddled onto one branch and grooming one another and interacting really is very special. There we go, all 5 together. So William, you're wondering if we would hear the squirrels if they started to alarm call. Well, yes, we would. They would make a sort of very funny sound, and I'm hoping that they would do it, because when we first got here, one was making that sound, and we often use squirrels to help us find some of the cats. So when they start alarm calling, you can hear it, and you know that sometimes there could be a disturbance, and particularly with leopards, squirrels will alarm call quite heavily for leopard. So when you hear them alarm calling, especially if you're following leopard tracks, it's always good to go and investigate where the squirrels are. So I'm hoping that they will make a sound at some point, and we'll be able to hear it. But it's a very sort of odd sound. It's not a sound that I can make. I've tried many times, but unfortunately I have never been able to do it. Now, we're going to probably sit a little bit longer with our squirrel family, because I'm really thoroughly enjoying watching their antics. And while we do this, let's go back to Tayla. Maybe she can do a squirrel noise for us.
I think I did that once, and then somebody said that their parrot started making the squirrel noise. I hope that I haven't caused any squawking, well, in the very late hours of the night, or perhaps it's very early hours of the morning, who knows, maybe it's just the afternoon. I'm sitting here on the ground, and we're looking at tracks, not of a squirrel, however, but of one of the largest animals, but one of the smaller members in that herd, and I thought it was quite cool. We always look at very big elephant footprints, but over here we have a tiny little elephant track in comparison to my hand. Look how small and cute it is. When I've got myself into a knot, I should be playing Twister. But it is really quite a small track. It's not particularly big. And then what I wanted to show is how I can tell that it's not very fresh. It is probably from yesterday sometime. Is this footprint here and this footprint here going that way. This is from a bronze-winged courser. And bronze-winged coursers typically only come out at night, or once it starts to get a lot cooler, though we had one out quite early the other afternoon. But they normally are nocturnal and move around quite a bit on the road, searching for scorpions and all sorts of other delicious things to feed on. Now, the elephant track, of course, is going this way. Here's the toe. So quite easy to tell, especially in the soft sand. You can actually see it quite nicely. On the harder substrate, it becomes a bit more difficult to determine direction. But the whole herd was moving sort of east away from us. And this happened, I would suspect, yesterday morning. And the reason why I know it's from yesterday morning is because I did have a look at some of the dung a little bit further down the road. There was little bits of pieces of grass, and they'd all dried out because they've been sitting in the sun. So quite easy to tell that way. But I just thought it was very nice to show you one of the examples and one of the many ways in how you can tell if a nocturnal creature has come through. You may even find a millipede track going through an elephant track. You could find scorpion tracks going through here. Again, they also only prefer to move at night, or even a temporary structure built by termites. All those sort of fine bits of grain of sand can often be over tracks, and you'll know that they would have done that at night too. Now, I don't know where this herd of elephants could be. They could really be anywhere this time. And Daniel, you were wondering which animal has the largest and the smallest tracks. My goodness. Well, smallest tracks is we're going to have to go. Let's exclude insects, because then it becomes almost impossible. But in terms of mammals, a very small track would be something like the size of a squirrel, even smaller, maybe a little mouse. Something along those lines. I don't know which mouse it would be, though. Maybe a pouched mouse. It could be any of them, really, but there are a lot of tiny ones, a little bushveld gerbil. Then, of course, largest one is easiest. The largest track that we have out here in Africa is that from a big elephant bull. But you got some contenders, of course. Hippo tracks are quite large. Rhino tracks are massive too. So out of those sort of three, I would say they're the biggest ones that we're going to see. But of course, the African elephant tops them all, being well, not just the largest track that we see out here, but the largest track that you'll see in Africa. Smallest, like I said, it's impossible to tell. It'll be one of the little rodents running around. Now, a lot of you are probably wondering what on earth this book is. Now,